Tonight, we check in with the poor man's Greg Gutfeld, George Clooney. Remember, he wrote a scathing op-ed prior to the election calling on Joe Biden to drop out? And this week, he took to CNN, the only place he's seen less than in his own movies, to gloat. God, I hope Jake Tapper doesn't plant his lips firmly on George's puckered ass.
Did Hollywood's everlasting leading man, George Clooney, inadvertently become a political caricature with a single grandstanding op-ed? He made an effort to seem like a statesman of the current day, with a voice of reason that broke through the clutter. Instead, he was being pursued by a humorous sharpshooter and a legal eagle. The public humiliation revealed more than just political inexperience. Clooney seemed to believe he could join politics miraculously while sipping an espresso, but instead he found himself on the floor. The throng was greased and armed with tomatoes.
Are the Hollywood roles getting a little hard to come by as you age and get decidedly more smug and self-congratulatory? I'm just asking. And chooses to finish this show by lecturing the audience on how journalism ought to be done. Speaking as Edward R. Murrow, he warns about the ongoing struggle for truth and integrity in the media. Truth and integrity. About the potential for the media to be manipulated and used for...
Clooney presented a compelling argument for Joe Biden's resignation, supposedly for the sake of the nation, in a highly read opinion article that before his stunning appearance. The CNN interview followed, when he sounded like Edward R. Murrow and delivered a somber lecture on truth, honesty, and the media's duty. For a brief while, he was admired as the Hollywood celebrity who dared to challenge the status quo. Others, however, saw something very different. A rich preacher from his Lake Co house, but not a seasoned politician. His remark on America's troubles seemed a little out of place, given that he was wearing a $20,000 tuxedo. Professionalism and confidence were evident throughout the performance. But there was a subtle hint of self-aggrandizement, and as it turned out, it was hardly the whole story.
It was a civic duty. When I saw people on my side of the street not telling the truth, I thought that was time to...
Are people still mad at you for that?
Some people, sure.
Wow, if that's Clooney with makeup. Imagine what he looks like without it, huh?
Clooney's painstakingly constructed persona as a fearless truth-teller started to unravel, mostly because of the unpleasant problem of time. He claimed to have seen personally the president's concerning fragility while attending a star-studded banquet for Biden, which led to the discovery of his allegedly bold opinion post. However, he didn't demand Biden's resignation until after the historic debate, when the whole country saw what Clooney said he had seen weeks before. He chastised the members of his party for their lack of bravery. But a lot of people started to wonder why it had taken him so long to display his own bravery. Was this a genuine revelation, or a well-timed comment made after public opinion had already shifted? The inquiries were many. As the story began to unravel, what followed transformed that skepticism into a spectacle.
And George get together and they start navel-gazing on stage about themselves, of course, and their vaunted profession, and how bad, how just terrible the media is, and had the following exchange.
In this is we talk about the responsibility of journalists to hold truth to power, right? That's our goal. And so if you're doing that, and we don't tell people what to think when we show that montage.
Enter Greg Gutfeld, who saw through Clooney's political machinations and answered with the biting humor of an experienced roast master. Gutfeld completely demolished the notion, going beyond just highlighting mistakes in Clooney's assertions. He described Clooney as the quintessential Malibu Messiah, a famous person who was so used to criticism that he utilized it to further his political career. Gutfeld questioned Clooney drinking espresso on his Italian home while criticizing ordinary Americans. He inquired as to whether having a vineyard entitles one to provide opinions on the global economy. He likened Clooney's political views to attempting to use a pricey perfume spray to cure a plumbing leak. It smells good, but it doesn't do anything. Then came the deadly strike. Clooney's performance with a talking goat was perhaps his most significant foreign policy experience. Clooney, according to Gutfeld, was not only hypocritical, but also the pinnacle of Hollywood's calorie-dense, pointless virtue signaling.
Clooney's the same guy who held a star-studded fundraiser for Joe weeks before he dropped out and only called for him to quit after his disastrous debate. Clooney ignored concerns over Biden's age for years, only to magically come to the conclusion that he was demented when America finally saw what Clooney had been hiding. That's the problem with Dems. They're obedient shills for awful people, then pretend otherwise once voters see that they're full of. But remember, we were pointing out Joe's dementia before it was cool. We knew Biden was the worst president ever, which probably means Jimmy Carter died a happy.
Megyn Kelly's assessment was more critical, but more restrained than Gutfeld's. She brought Clooney's wealthy virtue, signaling his support for climate change, to light while he accumulated massive carbon footprints on luxury aircraft. His demands for equality, made from a gated home, exposed not just his duplicity, but also his status as an out-of-touch elite. Kelly questioned the notion that popularity equals to competency and asked why celebrities are given forums to talk on challenging topics. She had the ability to see behind the slick public relations facade to an even more unsettling truth.
Tara Palmieri, who's got her own Substack and podcast now, she's been on the show, she got a copy and released a couple of the nuggets, and so did The Guardian. But hers was a really interesting nugget. And she's apparently in this book, they reveal that George Clooney saw more one day, right after his op-ed, and Mika Brzezinski was suggesting that Barack Obama was behind the George Clooney op-ed. That was making Clooney seem like Obama's puppet.
Yeah. Journalist Tara Palmieri claims that Mika Brzezinski's assumption that Barack Obama was behind Clooney's op-ed shifted the narrative from Clooney as a lone voice to a player in a larger political game. Kelly also attacked Clooney's silence on genuinely daring conservatives like David Mamoth, claiming that Clooney was just echoing the mainstream party's beliefs rather than demonstrating genuine bravery.
There's one person in particular I think is spectacular. There are a few who I think is levitating above that is Wes Moore. I like him a lot. I think he could be someone we could all join in behind. We have to find somebody rather soon. It's our job now to put together a proper team to stand up because we're right now polling very poorly.
I love that. Levitating above, as opposed to sinking to the bottom, like his last movie.
Many people responded favorably to Gutfeld's biting roast and Kelly's harsh criticism. Memes ridiculing Clooney were created by those fed up with the arrogance of celebrities, and they quickly gained popularity. The general public mocked Clooney's effort at serious conversation, and the moralizing of Hollywood's elite was generally rejected. The message was clear, but Hollywood didn't seem to get it.
Going on, this is to 60 last night, about, you mentioned his op-ed in the New York Times on Joe Biden and why he did it. Such a selfless, brave act, Ben. Here he was.
I was raised to tell the truth. I had seen the president up close for this fundraiser, and I was surprised. And so I feel as if there was a lot of profiles and cowardice in my party through all of that.
Oh, wow.
And I was not proud of that. And I also believed I had to...
That fundraiser where he saw Biden was falling off the stage, where Obama came out to grab him, was June 15th. The debate was June 27th. It wasn't until July 10th, almost a month after he attended the fundraiser with him, that George Clooney finally wrote that op-ed after it became clear that Joe Biden wasn't...
Many people consider elitism to be Hollywood's incurable illness, and this whole issue became a startling case study of it. The enduring notion that significant social, political, and economic insights correlate with success on screen. Why do so many well-known individuals feel compelled to preach from their opulent platforms? Gutfeld and Kelly weren't the only ones who trashed Clooney. They found a more pervasive, concerning pattern. They emphasize the widening divide between limousine liberals who boast about their achievements at award presentations and the common population who are sick of listening to elites who are from a different planet. Clooney's mistake wasn't unique to him. He came to represent an entire class of arrogant elites whose views are increasingly being ignored. There are significant consequences to this divergence.
But in this new world of common sense, what does he align with? Is he he might have way more in common with Trump than he is with the progressives. The question is, does he have the bravery to say that? I have no idea where he stands on the border, sanctuary cities, or trans extremism. How does he feel about the fires in L.A.? Is he happy with how it was handled by Mayor What's-Her-Face and Governor who's his name? You know, so when he talks about cowardice, he waited a long time, but he should have the guts to maybe say that his friends in Hollywood, like John Voight or Mel Gibson or Sylvester Stallone, who shared a risk, might have been right on a few things. He's starring in Glengarry Glen Ross. Am I right?
No, it's Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh,
sorry,
never mind.
My fault.
I was going to say, I mean, they have tremendous respect for David Mamet. David Mamet is one of the most conservative people. So maybe instead of just sitting in silence, you should actually speak up for some of the people who shared the risk.
And then Clooney's last blow arrived. His effort to position himself as a serious political person failed horribly, and acclaim was replaced by scathing criticism and biting comedy. This was not only an ego injury, it indicated that the public's dislike of flashy Hollywood elites was rising. Clooney's political moment suggested a more general trend. Would more celebrities reconsider getting engaged? Or are fame and false confidence too powerful to overcome? Reviews for this Hollywood political drama are presently less than positive.
Roberts, who outed herself not only as a leftist, which we knew, but as somebody who, and by the way, she's also a husband stealer. She stole the husband that she has right now in a reported affair. So, okay, maybe don't be the voice of the ad in which we talk about women betraying their husbands, because in the leftist view, marriages are not about honesty and talking about one's differences and agreeing to disagree on certain dicey issues, but they're about lying. And they believe this so strongly, you put it in an ad. And her pal, George Clooney, who did something similar for another ad, same. You got Joe Biden out. How'd it work out for you? How'd that go? Maybe you should have said something a little.
I think, this Johnny come lately, I was raised to be honest, is a bunch of BS. All right. Obama told him to do it. He sees himself as this extremely important person. I think he's an arrogant, condescending, smug individual who thinks that, he should be able to tell people in America and the Democrat Party, certainly, what they should and shouldn't do. This president, Joe Biden, is one of the most disastrous presidents that we've.
In addition to her progressive beliefs, Julia Roberts recently made headlines for her personal turmoil after supposedly having an affair and getting married to a guy. Perhaps she shouldn't represent honesty in relationships. Additionally unsuccessful was Clooney's plea on Biden to resign, particularly since it seemed to be politically timed. When he claims that I was raised with integrity, it seems like a cover-up. In actuality, Clooney comes off as arrogant and condescending, attempting to control both Americans and the Democratic Party. Even if Biden remains one of the worst presidents in our history,